Hey, what's up, guys? Got another podcast here for you. This is Tuned In Sports. I'm Bryson, and I'm here with Steve, and we've got another little breakdown, I guess you would call it, for you here on Tuned In Sports of some recent news that just came out. And this is podcast number 9 now. But the reason that we're doing this podcast, I'm sure if you're an Eagles fan, this isn't news, but Doug Pederson officially shipped out. He's gone. He is no more. He's taking his winnings.
Yeah.
He's taking his attempts to win somewhere else. And, to say that I was shocked is kind of an understatement. I'd been hearing rumors that they might be looking to can him, even though a couple weeks back they said he's going to be our coach for 2021. I had been hearing rumors that they might be looking to can him, but I honestly did not believe that they were ever going to actually pull the trigger on it, and I honestly thought that they would just continue to be rumors and turn into, hey, he's on the hot seat going into next season. I fully expected that to be the case.
Yeah.
So I did not think they were going to actually fire him, but here we sit. News broke yesterday, and he's out. He's a goner. So
Yeah, to me, it was a long time coming here. Just for one, the guy continuously sticks his foot in his mouth constantly with stupid statements and bad decision making. So to me, it was no shock really that he was let go. I'm with you though. I did hear that as well, that his job was safe. Earlier, a few, whatever, how long ago that was, not too long ago.
yeah,
But, as per most, you can't always believe what you hear.
yeah, exactly.
And especially when stuff is fresh, especially the way that last game ended and how much scrutiny the Eagles were under because of the way it ended and the actions that were taken in that game. And then for him to come out and say, "Oh, I was trying to win" and all this kind of crap, when, you know, obviously that wasn't the case. Um, no, I didn't have a problem with him tanking the end of the game or whatever. That's like standard procedure this time of year for teams, regardless of the situation. And just because he didn't make any friends in New York, I could care less. I'm sure he doesn't care, and really neither should any of the Eagle fans or anybody. You want to make the playoffs, win more games. Don't sit there and blame somebody that kept you out when you had 5 wins on the season. You
Yeah,
got no business being in the playoff game or even thinking about it to begin with. So, I mean, if, I don't have any sympathy for any Giants fans. You weren't good enough to make the playoffs, so don't start with that. That, oh, they screwed us. No, you screwed yourself. You lost, 10 games. Come on.
yeah. Well, and yeah, exactly.
You lose 10 games and only win 6, you don't deserve to be in a playoff talk. I could care less whether or not you're winning the division. The fact that the NFL allows a team to have that type of a record and still be in the playoff mix is, in my opinion, something they need to really take a close look at. Because to me, that's not right. You have teams sitting home that are, 9 or 10 win teams that really deserve to be there much more than any of those teams that came out of that division,
Yeah,
including the Redskins or whoever you want to throw in there. I don't care. Now, the Redskins was a great story, and nice to see Alex Smith get back to playing football. The coach coming off the cancer stuff, just a great story all the way around.
hmm
But, they didn't have any business being in there. None of those teams did. So, But I mean, I'm so sick of listening to Giants fans and these people complain about, oh, they kept them out of the playoffs. Screw you. You kept yourself out of the playoffs.
Mhm.
You know, quit using this stuff as an excuse to why your season ended. Your season ended when you started losing all games, everything that was a football game. So now I know that really isn't the focus of this particular conversation, and the conversation is primarily about the firing of the coach, which I fully support. Um, given his success that he's had, and the fact that he's had teams in the playoffs and he won a Super Bowl, and all things that point to him having another job, which I'm sure he'll have in a very short period of time. And I don't know that, is he the worst coach? No, of course not. The guy's had success. And he does have a winning record there. However, his record's only, I think, 46-37. So it's not like, he was blowing the doors off and dominating since he's been there. I mean, he's barely above 500. So
Yeah, and a lot of it came from the season where they only lost one game.
right.
I mean, because the other seasons pretty much, the one season that we made the playoffs, we got in at 8-8 or
Right.
something, and then another season, this season if we would have gotten in, we would have gotten in at 6-10-1 or something.
Right.
So I mean, the last couple of seasons have been, well, really, I mean, forget the last couple. Basically, every season since 2017 when we won the Super Bowl has been a very sharp decline. So, I mean, you wouldn't know that necessarily by looking at the record. You say, wow, well, if you separate the, 46 and 37 or whatever into different seasons, that has you at a little bit better than average each season, which, up until this season was accurate. I would say we were about average to a little bit better than average. But, this season, I mean, listen, I completely agree. I understand, from what I've read and people's reactions to it, Eagle fans, I understand, people that say, or I think there's a point to be made for the people that say, this guy has won you a Super Bowl and had you in the playoffs 3 out of the 4 years, and then he has one bad season, and you're canning him when a lot of the problems that we're having. I mean, on the field, there's definitely issues with coaching this year. But off the field, when you talk about front office and how many times that we're just dropping the ball in drafts and stuff like that, and who we're choosing to pick up and let go of, there's something to be said for frustration being in that department. And this guy is taking the fall as a result of it. They're looking for somebody to put the blame on instead of owning up to the fact that maybe they're not doing their best work either.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I get that. I completely understand. But with that being said, if you watch the games this year, something needed to change. And the way, and I've been pretty much saying that if you watched our reviews, pretty much from the beginning, I was not impressed with his coaching and his play calling more specifically. So whether that be him stay the coach but bring in an offensive coordinator or something needed to be different. Because the system we had going last year was not going to work. And then you compile that with what happened with Wentz. And then you compile that even further with what happened on week 17 at the end in that game. I understand what Dad is saying. when it comes to you shouldn't be upset as an Eagles fan that you tanked the game or whatever because it didn't benefit you to win it and all that other stuff. I understand there's a point to be made there for sure. And that's what I keep hearing from people is, hey, it didn't benefit you to win and stuff like that. And maybe you're right. But as a fan, it hurts to see, and no pun intended with Jalen, but it hurts to see that going on. And on top of that, it hurt even more to see it so blatantly. And then for him to come out and make the statements that he made, just poured gasoline all over the damn fire. And I mean, everybody on the sidelines didn't understand what was going on. The fans didn't get it. And it just erupted into this huge freaking mess. Mm-hmm. And somebody needed to be held accountable for that, I believe. You can't have that happening. And, the other thing is something that we're going to talk about in this video yet is that I don't feel like the Eagles is a situation where you're walking into it as a new coach and you've got loads of work to do. I feel like there are a lot worse, less desirable destinations than to come into Philly. And so with that being said, it's not like the coach had an inoperable team that didn't know how to play, didn't know how to win, didn't know how to do anything. We were a good team. So, yes, injuries, yes, COVID, yes, all that stuff. But let's not act like last season we weren't in the playoffs. I mean, we struggled last year too. I think we were 8-8 when we got in or whatever. 9-8 maybe, 8-8 I think. Or 9-7, whichever. But, I mean, I'm not saying that we were lighting the world on fire, but we were a far cry away from what happened this year.
Yeah.
And I didn't like how he coached. I didn't like how he used the talent. I didn't like how he called the plays. I didn't like how he conducted himself a lot of times in post-game interviews and things like that. And I didn't like the situations that he created where there didn't need to be problems. Mm-hmm. I mean, these are things that were not issues before. Carson Wentz had a bad season, but I mean, you took what I mean, realistically, if he played better, is that the difference between us lighting the world on fire and what we did? Probably not. So, would it have helped? Yes. But, I mean, there's another situation, really, where I feel like by benching him, you basically said, we're losing because of you. And it was so much more than that. So, all in all, he took a lot of situations and, in my opinion, handled them in the wrong way at the very least. And in some situations, I think he made them even worse. And as a result of that, just this year alone, you look at this year alone, you say, does this guy deserve to coach this team next year based on this year's performance? No.
No.
The answer is no. And people can say, well, yeah, but what about the years before that? Well, that's fine. You can say that. But here's the thing. Do you see it changing next year? My answer is no. I don't see it getting better. If anything, I see it getting worse. Mm-hmm. So, I'm on board with this. Because, like I said, what would lead us as fans to believe that this year, outside of past history, but I'm talking about this year alone, what as fans, and even, let's look at past history too. What would lead you to believe that this is going in an upward direction? Since we won the Super Bowl, we have gone down, down, and down. Our record has gotten worse, and it has been not good. I mean, we've been okay. We've been average. We've been average to good. But this year, we were horrible. And it's not like we were horrible when he took it over. So we've really declined since then. So what would lead you to believe when every year, basically in the last handful of years that he's been there, especially since he started doing play calling and coaching, we've gone down, down, down? What would lead you to believe that he's going to come out next season and have us winning playoff games and stuff? Nothing.
No.
So, I understand the history, and I understand he's the first coach to win us a Super Bowl, and I get he's not the sole reason that we are losing, and I get that there's problems with upper management, and I understand that the whole team has problems, and I understand that, like I said, it starts in the front office and stuff too. I get all that. But at the end of the day, what I saw last year was not a coach that I want back on my team going into next season. I saw a guy that I was like, if we have more of this, we are going to be as bad as we are now, if not worse. And anybody that says that they saw something that would maybe suggest otherwise, I don't know what you watched. I mean, outside of the Jalen Hurts thing, that was a good sign to next year. But then he may have gone ahead and screwed that up too. So, I mean, good Lord. You want to talk about waxing and wiping away all the positive things we have going on. He managed to pull it off. So, listen, I'm not saying that this guy can't coach. I'm not saying that he is not a good coach. And I'm also not saying that given the right system and maybe if he had an offensive coordinator with him or whatever, that we couldn't have maybe changed things around. We very well could have. But as far as I'm concerned, based on what I saw last year and the trajectory of this team, something needed to change, and I am in full favor of him being one of the things that needed to change. And I don't believe, you can talk about the front office, but at the end of the day, I don't believe this team is devoid of talent. So what it comes down to is the coaching staff getting the most out of the talent? And the answer to that question is no. Because week after week, if you watch the reviews, I'm on here talking about how our playmakers aren't getting targeted most weeks. That was a common theme in the review. How many targets did Jeffrey get? 1 or 2. How many targets did Ertz get? Very few. I mean, most weeks, our number one targeted receiver was probably not somebody that should have been. So that's not on the front office.
No.
That's on coaching, and that's on the quarterbacks too. But if you're not drawing up plays to get these people involved, well, then you're going to struggle. Mm-hmm. And you got a lot of money sitting around wasting. So, again, like I said, you can point fingers at the front office if you want to, but I'm not going to sit here and say that we don't have talent on this team. And when I'm watching Zach Ertz have 2 targets in a game and Alshon Jeffrey have 1 or 2 targets in a game, and then people are complaining about this, that, and the other thing, and Richard Rodgers, a guy that, is a bench player for a reason, is leading the team in targets, I'm not going to sit here and blame the front office for that. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just an all-around frustrating situation. And I get why people maybe would be upset that they seem to pull the trigger on this when there's other issues that need to be addressed. And I think the real frustration is that the issue in the front office has been there for a little bit with this Howie Roseman guy, because he's the personnel president or whatever. He's in charge of that kind of stuff. And he has, in a lot of people's mind, done a less than stellar job, but they keep on supporting him, and he's not having anything happen to him. But that gets back into another thing that I've talked about before, where, yeah, we've sucked in the draft at scouting and stuff. I mean, a lot of players that we've brought in, at least offensively, we've watched players of the same position turn into all-stars. Meanwhile, the guys that we drafted either can't stay on the field or are busts. So I get that. But let's not act like he's not made moves in free agency and trading to try to get players. And a lot of times, too, these people that he gets on the team and stuff, they end up going out with injuries. Now, could we aim for more reliable people? Absolutely. But, at some point, injuries are going to happen in football. And, I can't say that I've been unhappy with a lot of these moves, even the ones that didn't pan out.
No, at the time they seemed like
I was going to say
reasonable moves.
I mean, like bringing in Deshaun Jackson again. I thought that was great. I was like, shoot, if he could be any semblance of what he was doing before, this is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, had I known that he was only going to play in like 5 games in 2 seasons and be out the rest of the year with injuries, well, obviously, doesn't look so great now. But at the time, I was all for it. I was like, okay, guy that's got some past history here and is a good playmaker for the most part, and could be a nice spark to the wide receiving core. And I thought it was a good move at the time. So, again, you can with a lot of this stuff, you can blame people and blame the front office, but for some of these mistakes and some of these things, I'm not going to say that I was completely against the decisions that they've made. It's just not all of them have panned out. Now, in drafting, absolutely there have been mistakes made. And we're looking at a big one in number 2 with Jalen Hurts. I mean, that draft pick should have never happened. Where we're getting a quarterback in the second round when you got a guy making $130 million, that should have never happened. And as far as, we missed on DK Metcalf, for JJ Arcega-Whiteside, who's turned out to be garbage. And then we missed on Justin Jefferson and took Jalen Reagor. The jury's still out on him, but Justin Jefferson, the jury's out, and he is guilty of being a freaking damn good player. Because that guy looks like he's going to be the next big thing. Yeah. And we could have taken both of those guys, but we passed on them while they were still on the board and took other people. So, yes, there's problems there for sure. However, what I will say is that at the time with these free agency moves and stuff, I'm not going to sit here and say that I was harping on it and it was a bad decision from the beginning, because a lot of them I was on board.
Right.
I was on board with the decisions. Unfortunately, they didn't pan out. I was happy as can be when we got traded and brought Jeffrey in here. I thought that was an awesome move. And a lot of the time, it has been a good move. People complain about a couple of different things with him, about dropping balls and doing this and doing that and doing the other thing. I get that. But for the most part, he has been a solid player.
Yep.
But unfortunately, this year, like I said before, personnel. I mean, since he came back from injury, he may as well have not. He got targeted probably on average maybe twice a game. And for the amount of money he's making and what the expectation was bringing him in, I wish we wouldn't have. Because if you're only going to use him like that, geez.
Well, the only thing that, I'm not here to defend any of those moves because I'm not a big supporter of the coach myself, and but the only thing that I can figure on something like that is that maybe those injuries were more severe, and he wasn't targeted because he wasn't getting open.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't have the separation. He didn't, there's a lot more to it than just looking at the paper after the game's over and saying he was only targeted twice. Because you really don't know until you sit down and analyze film, where exactly was he, what kind of separations he getting. And with that being said, especially when Wentz is in there, at least this year, half the time, he was like a deer in the headlights, it seemed like, for most of this year. Where he was either under so much pressure he didn't have time to throw it, or he's envisioning pressure when there wasn't any and he's getting rid of it too soon. You know what I'm saying?
No.
And when you're only looking at trying to get rid of the ball after having it in your hands for a second or two, well, sometimes if you got a guy that's not at full health and he's not getting separation, you're not going there.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't feel like the ball's going to be completed.
Yeah.
And, I am in no way, shape, or form trying to give credence to what was taking place, because I agree with you 100%. You can't have talent like that, or supposed talent like that, and only throw to a guy like that 2 times a game and think that it's going to be enough.
Yeah, and then sit there and not accomplish anything in the trade deadline or anything.
Right.
And then sit there and say, oh, well, we like the direction of him on the team or whatever, and we like the players that we have. Well, something doesn't add up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Either his performance is not what it used to be, and therefore should have been moved, or something. That's all I'm saying. It just was a situation to me where they should have done something if that's what we could expect to see in the future. And
Thank you.
The fact that they didn't was very frustrating. And like I said, when you got personnel like that, at the end of the day, you can't sit there and just have these people doing, you can't sit there and have this talent on the roster and do that. And then just...
Because ultimately, if he's not healthy enough to be on the field, he shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly. And then the other thing is like with what's his name too, Zach Ertz. The week that he came back, they didn't even target him in the first half. So, again, there's another situation. If he's that hurt, where he probably shouldn't be out there, then don't have him out there. But if he's fine...
Especially when you're invested in the kind of money that they're invested into these guys.
I know. And that's why I say, you want to blame that on the front office too? They bring in the talent. It's up to the coach to use it. And the quarterback and these players. And it's up to the coach to make sure that plays and stuff are designed to get the playmakers involved. Just like we talked about in the Alabama video.
Yeah.
Devontae Smith, everybody knows, is a star player. The defenses know it. The offenses know it. And therefore, since the defenses know it, they've got to do different things to try to get him open. Not saying he can't get open on his own, but I'm just saying they design plays and they do stuff to make sure that even if the defense on him is good, he's still getting touches. I don't see that happening at all with the Eagles for these guys. As a matter of fact, I see a lot of weeks where we got people that are doing things or trying to do things and they're not even being targeted or utilized, and what they're doing is gone away from.
Yeah.
I mean, we got weeks where running backs and stuff, we're running the ball well or we aren't running the ball well, and people aren't going to the run.
Right.
I mean, Miles Sanders, there's another playmaker. I mean, the number of weeks where we've gone away completely from the running game is, and pretty much doubled the passing game to the runs. Can't even tell you how many times that happened this season.
Right.
And especially, and I don't want to keep this video going too long because, truthfully, I have a lot to say about this. I have a lot of things to complain about when it comes to Doug Pederson, but what I will also say is that, there's a lot of things wrong with what happened this season, and another one was that when you have a struggling quarterback and you have uncertainty at the position or whatever, and then you're still having him throw it double the amount of times that we're running, what the hell do you think's going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
What in the hell do you think is going to happen? If he's struggling already, take the ball out of his hands more and give it to the damn running backs. Make it easy for him. They didn't do that.
No.
They said, hey, we're going to have you throw it even more times. Throw yourself out of it. And therefore, he threw the game as well. A lot of times.
Yep.
That's what they said to him. They said, hey, you're struggling? Oh, okay, well, figure it out because you're going to be throwing it 50 times this week. And 48 the next week. And 47 the next week.
Mm-hmm.
And 39 the next week. Meanwhile, we're going to rush the ball 15 times. 23 times. Good luck out there. They did nothing to help him. They did nothing to help Wentz. And they really didn't do anything to help Hurts either. The only difference is they called up run plays for Hurts. And therefore, he was able to get involved. But they wouldn't have been calling those plays for Wentz. So instead, those probably would have been passes. So, whatever. But all I'm saying is, there was a lot of problems this year, and Pederson did nothing to help. If anything, a lot of the times he made it worse. And for that reason, he deserved to be gone. There's problems in the front office, and maybe some of those people deserve to be gone as well. But that doesn't mean that because those people should be fired, that Pederson should stay based on what he did. Because there's a lot of problems in a lot of different places.
Agreed.
It's not just one guy. And, a lot of people think Howie Roseman should be fired. Maybe he should. But the fact that he wasn't doesn't mean that Pederson should be kept. Because that's another problem too.
Yep.
I mean, let's not act like the coaching was great this year.
Yeah.
It wasn't. Just because you're upset that this guy got fired and not the guy you wanted to see go does not mean that this guy deserved to still be there. And that's my biggest thing. Because that's what I keep on reading. Oh, they're looking for somebody else to blame, so they're going to fire the coach instead of fire this guy who's really the problem. Well, he's one of the problems, but he's not the only one. If you watch the games, he definitely wasn't the only one. So, I mean, good Lord.
Well, people are going to see what they want to see. It's easy to spin stuff when you watch it based upon what your opinion of it is going into it.
Well, I know. Especially Eagle fans, it seems like, good Lord. Some of you guys, I just really think that some people are really still caught up in the whole, we just won a Super Bowl, so we're one of the best teams in the league, and we're not. We are miles away from it, and we are really struggling right now. And I mean, you want to turn a blind eye to some of this stuff because he's won some Super Bowls in the past. Go ahead. But I'm not going to sit here and say that what happened yesterday was not justified. Mm-hmm. It absolutely was. And whoever the new coach we bring in is walking into a mess. And it's all because of Pederson. He's walking into uncertainty. He doesn't know who the quarterback is and all this other stuff. Hopefully, whoever it is able to sort it out, get who needs to be out there, who doesn't need to be out there, not out there, and move on from there.
Yeah. That'll be the first
and at this point,
business.
At this point, I don't know who should be out there.
And then you got to figure, too, you got to deal with
no defensive coordinator either.
Right.
Because there's another guy everybody wants to blame. When pretty much every other year he was there, the defense was in the top 10, except this year. So, I mean, but yeah, he gets blamed because the offense was so bad this year. But then when Pederson, deserves some credit, deserves some criticism. Well, now it's because of Howie Roseman and what they're doing in the front office. No, it's not. Not solely. It's not solely because of Howie Roseman. I guarantee you, if we had a different coach in there, if Andy Reid was still leading this ship, we would not have been this bad this year. I guarantee you. If Frank Reich was still the offensive coordinator even maybe, we would not have been this bad this year. If we would have Jim Harbaugh, we would not have been this bad this year. If we would have had John Harbaugh, we would not have been this bad this year. We wouldn't be in this situation. If we had Mike Tomlin, if we had Sean McDermott, if we had Sean McVay, if we had obviously Belichick, I mean, duh, but if we had any of these people, Sean Payton, we would not have had these problems this year. I'm not saying we're winning a Super Bowl, but we wouldn't have been this bad. And we would not have had the crap that happened at the end of the season to swallow at the end. Say, oh yeah, you guys already had to put up with misery all year. Here you go. Kick you in the face on the way out the door. And then say Happy New Year. Get excited for 2021. Bow! Square shot to the nuts. See you next year. Buy more gear. Buy more apparel. Okay, will do. Can't wait.
Well, bottom line is that what's done is done now, and what they do moving forward is what's going to matter.
Yep.
And contrary to what some believe is going to be a dumpster fire, I kind of feel like they've gotten rid of a lot of the issues just by doing what they did. Like we talked about before, in my opinion, they've eased the quarterback controversy Because the new coach is going to come in there, and he's going to determine what he thinks is the right coach or the right guy to have in there.
Yeah.
Right now, I mean, you were definitely going to lose Carson Wentz probably. But, with that being said, if they were to, I mean, you'd have to have him traded because he's still under contract. And, I mean, good luck getting rid of him for any type of value the way he's played. I mean, there's not anybody that's logical anyway that can sit there and defend how he's played this year. I mean, he's played a lot like the Detroit Lions quarterbacks have played over the years. I mean, just constantly under fire, making bad decisions, turning the ball over. Was it all his fault that things went the way they did? No. Did they have a number of injuries, offensive line, and all this? Of course. And, I mean, all that stuff adds up to problems, which are not all of his doing. But certain guys are able to seem to be able to make it through it without having horrible seasons like that.
Well, like he did last year. I mean, he played great last year, and it was the same circumstances. So even he's capable of doing it. But this year was not it. This year was not what we needed. This year was not what we expected. This year was not what it should have been. And this year was not acceptable for the amount of money he's making. I'm in full agreement. I mean, that's what it comes down to. For the amount of money he's making, can't have that.
Yeah.
So I'm not even, I was not happy, and I didn't think it was the right move to do what they did with benching Wentz in the first place. I didn't think that was the right move. However, what I will say is, I don't think I can't blame Pederson for saying, does he deserve to be out there with how he's played? No. I can't blame him for that decision. Do I think it tanked the season? Yes. I think that move tanked our season. And I think it was a mistake. But I can't blame him for doing it because at the end of the day, it needs to be better. It can't be like that. He can't play like that and expect to just, stay out there. And the way Hurts came in and played, I also can't blame him for saying, hey, we're going to see what this guy has because you're not doing anything.
I don't think Hurts played bad at all. I thought Hurts was an upgrade, personally, from the way that Wentz was operating. But, whatever, I mean, you're going to have a host of different opinions on that. You either have people that are Wentz supporters or Wentz haters.
Well, he was an upgrade from how he was playing this year, but then they went ahead and did that crap at the end where they pulled him and possibly upset him with how that situation was handled. Uh-huh. So even if he was an upgrade, you may have screwed yourself there too with how it was going, which is another reason why Pederson needed to go. Because if Wentz ended up, we can't move forward with this guy, at least you had Hurts to fall back on. But with the way that you handled that situation at the end of the season, you may not have even had him wanting to be there. He may not have had a choice, but it could have rubbed him the wrong way, the way that was handled, and you could have screwed yourself there too. So that's why I say, I don't necessarily blame him for tanking or whatever, but at the end of the day, first of all, to say that he was doing it to win, if you're doing things with the expectation of wanting to win, then you don't take Hurts out of that game, because even if he was struggling, which he was not doing great, but he was far from. I mean, I saw Wentz do a hell of a lot worse and stay in the game the whole time this season.
Yep.
So, first of all, that's a dual standard right there if you're going to say that.
Right.
But second of all, even if he is struggling, you keep him in there because it's experience. If he's your guy moving forward, it's experience. Mm-hmm. But to do what you did, I
don't. My personal feeling is that he had it in the game plan to do that from the very start. Was to, find a way not to win the game. I think that was his total game plan. Had he come out and said that prior to the game, would you feel any differently now than you do?
Well, if the plan was to not win that game, and it seemed as though all the players knew that was the plan, then yes. But it didn't feel that way. It didn't seem that way. It didn't look that way.
Yeah.
It didn't look like anybody knew that was the plan.
Right.
It looked like everybody was like, what the hell is going on?
Right. No, you're right. It did have the appearance of that where everybody's trying to play here and win this game. And then he makes that decision, to which when you see Hurts on the sideline, it looked like he didn't know that was coming.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's a whole different thing if you say, hey, ahead of the game, that was the strategy, and you even have that conversation with him or whatever, you have that conversation with the team, it doesn't have to go out into the media. But you just tell the team, this is what we're doing, and we're going to lose this game. But it didn't look like everybody knew the plan.
No, I mean,
it looked like everybody was as blindsided by it as the fans. Or at least some of the fans, because a lot of people didn't seem to care that happened. I mean, apparently I'm in the minority. I mean, it pissed me off. I was not happy with it. But, again, I could, like he said, if it would have been presented differently, then maybe I wouldn't have an issue with it. But the way that it looked to the players and all that stuff, you're panning over to the sidelines, everybody looks pissed. You got ex-Eagle players and stuff who are just sickened by what they're seeing. The one guy, like I talked about in the one video, came out and said that he's disgusted to even have his name associated with the organization after what happened. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't seem to me like everybody was, along in the plan. And that was just a mess. And I think the only way to fix that mess is to get rid of the one who started the mess. And he was the one that started all that problem. You, like Dad said too, you bring in a new coach, let him assess the quarterbacks, figure out what he wants to do, and then go from there.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe that Wentz is completely devoid of talent. I think he can still play. And I think if you had somebody that tried to help him with some of the areas of struggle, if you had a front office that was willing to, instead of try to draft his replacements, put pieces around him and help him on the offensive line, and then on top of that, you have an offensive coordinator that knows how to maximize his strengths and limit his weaknesses, he could be more than serviceable. And he's proven that in past years. He can be more than serviceable. But this year, for whatever reason, it didn't work. And the coach did absolutely nothing to help him out. If anything, all he did was kind of throw him under the bus and say, it's your fault.
Right.
So, but whatever. Like I said, I mean, truthfully, we can make this an hour, we can make this a couple hour video because I could talk about this situation for a lot longer, but it's already gone on for long enough. And I mean, I'll say this one last time in closing because, I get the frustration with the front office. I understand that some people feel like they fired the wrong person, but my argument is not that they fired the wrong person. They didn't fire enough of the right people. And all year it felt like the criticism for him was deflected onto other people. Whether that be, we're not winning because of the coach, or or the quarterback, or we're not winning because of this player, or we're not winning because the defense, or if special teams was a little better. But I never felt like the criticism throughout the year was pointed directly at the right people. And then for the ownership to come out and say, yeah, we want to sponsor this and keep it going next season, for me was like, what are you seeing here? So I agree that maybe Howie Roseman should be fired. I would not be upset by that. I think it would probably be a smart move. But just because he wasn't doesn't mean that, Pederson should get a free pass, because this season was not good. And a lot of it falls on him. Mm-hmm. And pretty much, as far as I'm concerned, too, is that, again, I don't want to keep this video going forever, but when I'm seeing the same things week to week in these games, I'm not seeing adjustments. I'm not seeing a team that's ready to play in the first half the majority of the time, and all these different things. I'm seeing mistakes on coaching. This is some of the things that were happening this season that were going wrong had nothing to do with personnel. Nothing. I'm seeing mistakes and lack of adjustments on offense. On game planning, on play calling. It doesn't matter who you have on the field. In those situations, a lot of them, we could have had Tom Brady out there. And I'm seeing a lack of, in many areas, that is strictly coaching. Forget the personnel. I don't care who you have. Some people might have a better chance than others, but if you have Aaron Rodgers and you put him in a situation where you're down by 20 points immediately, he would have a hard time this season. Mm-hmm. So, and again, I'm not saying no personnel deserves any blame, but I'm just saying, to come out and halftime adjustments are generally non-existent, and I'm seeing them completely go away from running the football and stuff and doing things like that, and then his analytics and all this stuff that, we had one of the worst fourth down conversion percentages of football this year, and he's still going for it every chance we get. That's coaching. That is not players. Yes, players make plays, but you got to put the players in the best position to succeed. Yep. And many, 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 many times he did not do that at all. He didn't do it. And that's not personnel. That's not Howie Roseman. That's not Jeffrey Lurie. That's not any of the vice presidents of football, of this, of that, anything. That is strictly coaching. And that is what needed to change. Right. One of the things that needed to change was coaching. And if you want to say that you saw it turning around next year, well, good then luck. I guess you can have that opinion, but I don't know what you were looking at.
I agree.
So that's it. That's really it in a nutshell. You either think that this year was one year and that every other year would have been not like that, or you think that this was just a sign of things to come. And I'm of the mindset that this was only the beginning of many more years of this exact same thing. and unless there was a coaching change made, it was going to be, next year was going to be just like this year. So why waste time? Why waste a year? Let's start making the changes, because as far as I'm concerned, at the end of next season, the result would have been the same. He would have been fired, because I don't see this team drastically improving.
Right.
No matter who the quarterback was, I didn't see it drastically improving. So with that being said, I think all that keeping him would have done was, it would have been a mess, and it would have delayed the inevitable one more year. So as far as I'm concerned, if it was going to happen next year anyways, let's just get it over with so that we can have the most time, waste the least amount of time, and have the most time to start working towards the future.
Agreed.
That's all that there is to say. I mean, if you don't feel that way and you feel that next year would have been different if Pederson would have stuck around, hey, I guess that's your prerogative. And if you feel that way, okay. I mean, it is what it is. We all have our own opinions, I guess. But from what I watched, I didn't see it. So, anyway, but this has been another video, another podcast, Tuned In Sports, podcast number 9. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you guys in the next video.